What a game, John. That Wolves victory after being down 16-0 in the first quarter, dramatic fourth quarter, heroics from Anthony Edwards. That was a blast. So much fun to see that arena rocking like that. Let's get to that game, what it might mean, what's ahead for the Timberwolves here on the Jon Krawczynski Show. He's Jon Krawczynski from The Athletic and TalkNorth.com. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. This is our basketball show at TalkNorth.com. If you like the show, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. You can find the show on YouTube or via audio. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio, and we're presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. John, just take it away. I watched the game on TV. You were there. What was that game like? What jumped out about that game to you?
Yeah, Jim, I tweeted about it, and I do think it's like right in the running for one of the best games of the season, certainly for the Wolves, but even in the league, because, for 3 quarters, the San Antonio Spurs were really giving it to the Wolves. I mean, Victor Wembanyama was unbelievable. The Wolves couldn't hit a shot. Like, they were really struggling offensively, and they just didn't seem to have the right solutions to get around this 7'6" alien that's sitting in the middle of the court defensively, and they just couldn't find the right mix. And then, Wembanyama gets 4 free throws in a row with a Rudy Gobert technical foul, with a flagrant foul, and the Spurs go up 10 with 7.5 minutes to go. And you're thinking, man, they're going to need some stops down the stretch to even have a chance of getting into this. And so what does Micah Nori do? Of course, he puts Julius Randle on Victor Wembanyama, and that makes perfect sense, right? But Julius comes in and just gets really, really physical with Wembanyama, plays the best defense that he's ever played as a Timberwolf for that stretch. And then Anthony Edwards' clutch performance, it just continues to skyrocket. And he made 2 ridiculous shots down the stretch. The place was on fire. It was a full house. It felt like a deep playoff game in there, and just an awesome environment and atmosphere to be in mid-January and have 2 of the best teams in the West slugging it out, and for the Wolves to actually come out on top of that one. It was a super fun game to be at.
Yeah, and probably the most important thing that did come out of that is it felt like Anthony Edwards he's had such a complete game. He's done so much at a young age. He's done so much winning, but you just weren't always sure whether he knew exactly what he wanted to do in clutch situations. And last night, the confidence, we're talking about it because of the results, but the confidence was there. He knew what he wanted, and he got his shot, and he made them.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the big nits to pick about his game earlier on in his career, including much of last season, during the regular season at least, was that this was a guy who just wanted it so badly and wanted to have the ball in his hands and make the big shot, that he often made poor decisions in those situations in terms of shot selection, in terms of kind of forcing himself into those moments and kind of doing what he felt needed to be done, but not doing it in the way that it needed to be done. And for those reasons, the Timberwolves really struggled in clutch situations in the regular season last year. This year has been an entirely different Anthony Edwards. Not only is he making shots, Jim, which he's making over 70% of his shots in clutch time, which is absurd, especially for a guard. But you just look at the process that is getting him to the shots that he wants, and it's so much more intelligent. It's so much more in control. He has a real plan almost every time that he is taking these shots. And we asked him about it last night in the locker room. And, and he said that basically, hey, in the final 4 minutes of a close game, give me the ball. I'm taking my guy to the post and I'm operating out of there. And that's what he did with Stephon Castle on the first shot. Was he got to the baseline, backed him down, and Stephon Castle's a really good defender, really strong. And he hits this turnaround baseline fadeaway that is unguardable. It's just frankly unguardable. But he knows that he can make that shot, and he knows exactly where he has to get to be comfortable with that shot, and it worked. And then, the shot at the end to win the game was him dissecting in real time a problem. And it was Wembanyama switches out to him. And he's like, I saw Wemby come out and I'm like, oh, damn, like, what am I going to do here? But he didn't panic and he didn't go too quickly to force kind of a step back shot that would have been contested and would have been a low percentage shot. Instead, he waited, he attacked, got a little screen from Julius Randle, got around Wemby just enough, and then floats this scoop shot up over Luke Cornett off the glass. That is just the kind of play that there's no answer for that shot as a defense. Like, so in the past, when he had success with clutch time shots, it was usually this wild kind of step back contested three that was amazing. It was just like a great shot, but it was kind of like, well, the defense will live with that. Now you're seeing him get to these shots that are equally unguardable, but he's doing it in a way that kind of injects more hopelessness into a defense, because it's just like, we don't know what to do with a play like that. And so to see him ascend to that type of thinker in those moments was kind of like the last plateau that he had to reach. And now, Jim, like, it's not hyperbole to say that he is entering the MVP conversation. When you look at Jokic with his injuries, when you look at, Shea's been amazing and the Thunder are having a great year and he's probably the front runner. Giannis, the Bucks are struggling a little bit. Luca Doncic is not playing as well with the Lakers. You kind of look around at the other candidates, and now, lo and behold, here are the Timberwolves with the best record since Thanksgiving, and Anthony Edwards just doing these amazing things in the clutch that, if this maintains and the Wolves stay in the top four in the West, he's absolutely going to belong in that conversation and make that a discussion all year long.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's fascinating to watch, and you make a great point. I mean, there is an opening there for the MVP, which leads me to the next question: when is Wemby going to just take over the MVP award and win it for 10 straight years?
Man, it's one of the things that struck me about the post-game environment in there is the reverence with which the Wolves talked about Wemby. This is a team, Jim, the Wolves, that when they beat you, they usually like to let you know about it. They usually like to rub it in a little bit. They like to kind of peacock and stunt on a team a little bit. There was none of that in the locker room. Certainly there was celebration. Certainly they felt good about it. But the Wolves play the Spurs at the end of this week on Saturday, and Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle both spoke as if they didn't want to poke the bear. Anthony Edwards was like, look, we got to play that guy again, and he's going to be ready for us. And so there is just this kind of respect for him. And, it really struck me because, Greg Popovich, the old Spurs coach, current executive, kind of really popularized this notion of what he called appropriate fear. And what that means is you respect and you fear your opponent. You don't back away from him. You don't cower in front of him, but you know that he can beat you. And if you don't have that, then either it's you're playing a team that you don't have to worry about, or you're going to get beat by someone. And so it feels like these guys have an appropriate fear of Victor Wembanyama, that, hey, this is a guy that whenever he gets that three-pointer kind of really locked in, and when he stays healthy, I mean, I don't know what you do. Like, I really don't. It's a race, I would say, Jim, for the next couple of years to get to that title, because it's conceivable that once he rounds into form, like it's just over for several years. So you better win and win now because he's coming, man. And it's unreal.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I want to talk more about Ant. I'm not sure what direction to take it at this point. I mean, if he's going to be great in the clutch, if he's going to run the offense, if he's going to facilitate, if he's going to finish at the rim, if he can get his 2-point shot off whenever he wants, and he's playing defense. I mean, and he's also getting back on defense. He still might complain, but he's not lagging on the offensive end when he has a call go against him. I mean, what's his main flaw at this point?
Yeah, I mean, like there certainly is like a little inconsistency, Jim, with defensive effort. Sometimes he'll miss a box out here and there and give up an offensive rebound, but it's all very small stuff at this point. The consistency with which he's playing, and you hit on it, the way that he is engaging in the little things as well as the big things, the diving on the floor for loose balls, the being really locked into the game plan defensively, and also the ability for him to get his teammates involved more. So the game against the Spurs was a really good example. This wasn't a game where he was getting a ton of shots early on or through the first 3 quarters. The Spurs were doing a good job of trying to take him away and make it hard for him. And so he didn't force himself into the action. He didn't dribble, occupy possessions and just get up shots just to get shots up. He was patient with how the game was playing out. And yes, in the last 3-4 minutes, he was much more aggressive and assertive in going to get the ball and making those plays. But that's all right because by that time, Jaden McDaniels was in the offense, Dante DiVincenzo was in the offense, Julius Randle, Naz Reid, like everyone was feeling involved and included. And I think that's a really big thing for Ant. And if we want to kind of like steer this conversation into an area that's appropriate right now, I mean, with the trade deadline coming up, the way that Anthony Edwards is controlling games, the way that he is making decisions with the ball in his hands, like I still really do believe it. Like it is reducing the need for a point guard option. I do think that the Wolves have kicked around the Trae Youngs of the world, the John Morants of the world, like those big time names. I don't, obviously Trae got traded, but I don't think it's likely at all that they go and get a big ticket point guard for financial reasons in terms of the second apron but also for the main reason is that Anthony Edwards is the point guard right now. And he looks up to that challenge. And so I think that they would look for another bench scorer, certainly another ball handler to have and help take some of the pressure off. But I really do not think, Jim, that that the primary motivation of the Timberwolves as trade season is upon us is we need to go get a starting point guard to play next to Anthony Edwards. I just don't think that's the case because of the way that he is handling things right now. And that's just a huge thing for the Timberwolves because it gives them a little more flexibility to kind of look at other players and other things that they can do to just supplement their roster rather than to overhaul it at this point.
Let's talk about Rudy next and then get a little more into the roster, the depth, whether they do, who could be that extra player they get who helps out with the rotation. But first, tell us more about Lexus, Wayzata, and Maplewood.
Yeah, Jim, if you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with 2 great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
Scott for Aquarius, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer. It's 2026 and time to fix your problem water. Time to enjoy spotless dishes, softer skin, cleaner laundry, And say goodbye to funny taste and odors. Upgrade today and enjoy no payments and no interest for 6 months on a new high-efficiency Connecticut water treatment system. Schedule your free water test at AquariusHomeservices.com. Financing based on credit approval. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
Also want to thank our friends over at TSR Injury Law, Steve Terry, all the good people we've met over there. Just remember, if you're injured, call 612-TSR-TIME. They will help you any way they can. If they take your case, they won't charge you unless they win your case. They win a lot of cases. That's why they are such a great Minnesota success story. And they are a Minnesota success story. This is a company that started here, grew here because they win cases and they help people out. This is not somebody coming in from another region and pretending and putting on a Timberwolves hat and acting like they're one of us. TSR actually is one of us. 612-TSR-TIME. So Rudy is having an excellent season. Wasn't at his best on Sunday night. Ends up getting the flagrant foul, technical foul, and a suspension. How concerned are you about this trend?
Yeah, it's tough, Jim, because, I will say that Rudy's flagrant fouls right now, generally speaking, are not of the lose my cool, Draymond Green variety that would say, yeah, dirty player, and doesn't belong, that kind of play doesn't belong in the league. He got his 5th flagrant foul against the Spurs for a closeout on a 3 on Wemby. He was trying to get out and contest the shot. He was in the wrong and ended up in Wemby's landing area, and so the flagrant foul was an appropriate determination, and that rule makes it more likely that he's going to get another flagrant foul down the stretch. I mean, we are not even halfway through the season yet, Jim, and so he's going to serve a suspension against the Milwaukee Bucks on Tuesday. And then once he comes back, the next flagrant foul he gets is a 2-game suspension. And so that's just the nature of the rules in the league. And so it is an issue because he's been incredibly important to what they do. Of course, they won against the Spurs, and they've won a couple of games here and there when Rudy has not played well or has been on the bench watching the fourth quarters. But in general, he's been terrific, all season long. His offense is improving. His defense has been Defensive Player of the Year worthy. And so for him, he has to be more careful with that. But when you ask him to be careful, it takes away a little bit of the Rudiness of his game. And so it is going to be a challenge the rest of the way here for him. One game here, they can probably, they can survive it and be all right. But if he gets into now the frequency of every next flagrant is a 2-game suspension, man, that's a chunk. And so I don't know how Rudy will adjust his approach coming back, but the volume that he's racked up already is a problem that the Wolves are going to have to deal with just the rest of the way. There's no going around it.
So when you talk about possible trade targets, what do they need more? Kind of a replacement for Nickeil Alexander-Walker or a backup center?
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting is, Micah Nori, who was filling in for Chris Finch, who was sick in the game. He had a Micah joke after the game, but it actually was interesting because he said, "Hey, you guys have been asking us about playing Johan Beranger, and now we're going to probably have to play him on Tuesday against Milwaukee." So in some ways, it's going to be enlightening one way or the other, assuming that Beranger does play, is let's see what the kid looks like. And, Milwaukee does like to play big with Giannis and Miles Turner and, Portis and a bunch of those guys. And so if Beranger holds his own in that spot, maybe you don't have to be as intentional about going out and adding a backup big, even though I think that it might be a good idea given Rudy's situation. I believe that wing scorer, ball handler kind of, bench boost is probably the biggest thing that this team needs right now, because Bones played really well last night, and has shot it well the last couple of games. It would be nice to have a third option with him and Naz Reid, so that if either or both of them are having a tough night, your bench isn't just sunk. And ideally, that was going to be Terrence Shannon Jr. Ideally, even Rob Dillingham could have come off the bench here and there and given you 10 points in 14 minutes. But it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. Terrence Shannon Jr., it was announced on Sunday that he's going to continue to be evaluated with his foot injury. There's no timeline on it, but it just doesn't seem like that is clearing up really quickly. And so I think that if I were Tim Connolly, I would be looking for an Ayo Dosunmu from Chicago, maybe a Kobe White, maybe, I don't think it's Malik Monk, but, some kind of wing guard off the bench who can handle the ball a little bit, who can score and give you some points, and ideally can play a little defense. And, that's a small needle to thread, but I think that should be the priority over the backup big and over a point guard.
Would Luca Garza have been of service, and was there an opportunity to keep him under their financial constraints?
So there was an opportunity for under the financial situation, just because he signed a minimum deal with Boston. But I honestly, I feel thrilled for Luca Garza that he's playing so well for Boston. I just don't think it was realistic that was going to happen here. And Micah Nori spoke about this with Johan Beranger before the game on Sunday. He said, with Naz Reid, Julius Randle, and Rudy Gobert playing as many minutes as they do, they play about 96 minutes combined, there just is no room for him. Now, yes, like if they would have held on to Luca and just waited for an injury or waited for a suspension to happen, he would be a better option right now, because he's a little more veteran. He's grown up. He's played a lot of basketball, and you could use him not in a defensive way, but certainly in a come in and fill that spot in your own way sort of role. But they did right by Luca Garza in letting him go somewhere else, because you could not guarantee this. You could not foresee that Rudy was going to have a bunch of flagrant fouls and you were going to need a backup big that way. Certainly you could anticipate that maybe someone would get hurt, and so you want insurance, but they had already drafted Beranger by the time they made the decision to let Luca Garza go. And so it went draft and then free agency. And so I think that they looked at the situation and said, Luca deserves to have an opportunity to play somewhere. And so they did. They let him go, and now he's in Boston. He's shooting like 50% from three, and he's getting every offensive rebound there is. And so it's really good for him. But if he were here this year, he wouldn't be playing at all, except for, Tuesday against Milwaukee or something like that. And so the Wolves did the right thing by letting him go, and good for Luca for taking advantage of that. Good for the Boston Celtics for recognizing his talent and putting him in a position to succeed, because it's been a great story so far.
Last ad break. Let's take care of the people who take care of us, and let's start with True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. I've been telling you about it for a year and a half now. As you see, if you're watching this on video, I do not have glasses anymore. I don't have to mess with contacts anymore. I got LASIK surgery at True Vision, and it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself. Go to truevision.com, CHUvision.com, and set up a free consultation. You'll go in. They will put you through all of the paces. They will ask all of the right questions. They will make you feel warm and welcome in their offices, and they will get you to the right vision correction procedures or solutions that you need for your situation. And once you go through it, and if you go through LASIK at True Vision, you will be just astounded at how easy it is to do. Dr. Chu is an incredible presence in the room. He just calms you down and gets you through the whole thing. You're on the other side of it. You use some eye drops for a little while, and you're seeing as clear as a bell. I can see at night. I can see, up close. I can see from far. It's just been so much easier to live life since I've had LASIK surgery at True Vision. So go to truevision.com and go visit the good folks at True Vision in Bloomington.
We'd also like to thank Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line.
sglambchops.com is the place to go for the best casual wear: hoodies, sweatpants, jackets, shirts. I was wearing a Lamb Chop sweater actually to a game recently at Target Center. Got a lot of compliments about that. They are so soft. They are so comfortable. They're super high quality. And the best of all is you see Jordan and Craig from Lamb Chops courtside at Timberwolves and Lynx games. You see them in the community all the time. They are a part of this Twin Cities community. And so why not support a really good local company that is invested in the Twin Cities like Lamb Chops? If you go to a Target Center for a Wolves or a Lynx game, there are so many people wearing Lamb Chops. You'll be on the front end edge of fashion. You go out in the North Loop, you can wear it out there for a night on the town. You can wear them lounging around, watching games at home. Just so versatile, so high quality, and also really affordable. So go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
sglambchops.com also sponsors the Twitter question that we get to at the end of every episode. Thanks to them for that. We'll be getting to that here shortly. Who's the seventh best player on this team right now?
It's a great question, Jim. I would probably have to say, I think Bones Hyland has kind of asserted himself as much as possible in that spot. I mean, Mike Conley is still playing, still getting minutes. Mike Conley and Bones Hyland are both up and down for different reasons. Mike is 37, 38 years old. He will have games where he looks really spry and the matchups are favorable and he is a very helpful winning player. And then there are games against younger teams, against more athletic, bigger teams, or maybe he's played 5 or 6 in a row and he's moving a little bit slower where it just doesn't look like he has it. Bones is a little mercurial as well, just in terms of shot making. And some nights it's going in and some nights it's not. But you can see that when he's on the court lately, even when the shot isn't going in, he's on the plus side of the plus minus a lot because he is active, he moves the ball, he brings energy to the equation, and it's having a good effect on things. And so, he was instrumental in that comeback against the Spurs because it could have been a 20 to 25 point deficit in the second half were it not for Bones hitting a couple threes and just making a few plays to kind of keep them hanging around and within striking distance. And so, he had 7 assists the other night against Cleveland, so he's moving the ball and not just scoring. And so I think that he's the guy right now, Jim, that I probably would want to see have the most minutes in that 7th spot. And he brings the most upside and the most juice at this point. And there's going to be nights where he doesn't have it, and you got to kind of make that decision. But in general, he seems to be earning that spot. And one other thing to bring up about that is he went through a real shooting slump last week and for a few games prior. And I do think that there was a little bit of nervousness about his contract being fully guaranteed for the rest of the season. We got past that deadline last week, and now he's locked in for the rest of the season. And now I think that's just one less thing for him to worry about. And so I'm not surprised that over the last couple of games, he started to shoot a little bit better. And so I think it's conceivable that that little mental hurdle is gone and that he's going to kind of just be a little more reliable and consistent the rest of the way here.
Do you think Micah Nori will be a coach in the NBA soon?
He should be. Yeah, he should be, Jim. Chris Finch after the OKC ejection, he had a joke like I'm just trying to get Micah a job. He's interviewed all over the place. I can't get rid of him, but Micah is in that sort of rotation right now of guys who anytime an opening comes up, their name is brought up as a possible candidate. He has interviewed a bunch of places over the last couple of years here. He is not he's got an interesting case in that a lot of times what we're seeing right, in the hiring cycle of an NBA looking for a head coach, you're looking maybe for accomplished former player that's done it at a high level, that has some sort of ties to whatever team has hired him. You're looking for a long resume of success at other stops. Whether Michael Malone will be in that case, in that conversation going forward. Those types of head coaches who have won at a high level, gotten fired or left for whatever reason, and then are going to get another opportunity somewhere else. But then a third one is like this young, forward-thinking, analytically driven, assistant coach or something that is you give him the reins and see what he does. And I think Jordan Ott in Phoenix is doing a great job, and is one of those guys. Charles Lee in Charlotte, like there's that kind of swing. Micah is a longtime NBA assistant. He's a little bit older. He's not kind of in the like hot young coach category. And he's also not a former player. And so he's not checking any of those boxes, but he's kind of similar, Jim, into what Chris Finch was when he was hired. Chris Finch had been a 10-year assistant in the NBA, had been overseas in Europe coaching, but had never been a head coach in the NBA. And until he was hired by the Timberwolves, and he's done a really, really good job since he was hired. And so Micah will be, whenever he is hired, which I do believe will happen soon, he will be the kind that has been around a bunch of different organizations, coached with some really good head coaches, has a great way and demeanor about him, and really thinks about the game at a high level, and gets an opportunity for those reasons. And I just think he's getting too many of these chances to interview that certainly sooner than later some team is going to take a chance on him and going to be very happy with what he does. He's been great here. The more the Timberwolves win, the more his profile will raise and the more opportunities he gets. If Finch keeps getting thrown out or getting sick, these are real good chances for him to really show what he can do. And he made some really good moves down the stretch in that Spurs game to win, to help the team win. And he was great in the Phoenix series and the Denver series, a couple of years ago when Finch was injured, stepping into that role. And so he's just done everything you could ask him to do. And so I do believe that sooner than later, a team is going to understand what he can bring to the table and give him a shot to do this.
He's a serious coach, but he has a great affable personality.
Yes.
Do you think his personality will survive the scrutiny of being a head coach?
That's a great question. I would like to think so. It's such a part of who he is, that, it just shines through even in Jim, even in those high pressure situations when he was coaching in the playoffs, when he was, being a spokesman for the team, he maintained that sense of humor, that irreverence to him. And I think it speaks to the confidence that he has in himself. Like he does the TV interviews and says the funny lines. There's some coaches that would be like, look, I'm trying to make a great first impression here. I'm going to be a robot and just say the right things. And Micah is very comfortable in his own skin. And so I would hope that once he does get that opportunity, that he is able to hold on to that, because that's makes him who he is. But you just never know. Like everyone says, when you slide over those 8 inches from that seat that you're in now to the head chair, the crown is a lot heavier, and it has changed people over the years, and it could change Micah if he's in a tough situation, if there's, he goes through a difficult, experience with it. But just knowing the way that he operates and knowing who he is as a person, I'm not as concerned about that with Micah Nori as I would be with some other coaches who would get their first chance.
All right, let's do a segment here to appease those who are still angry that this team loses some games they shouldn't lose, or theoretically shouldn't lose. They lose a noon game on Saturday at Cleveland. To me, it was classic trap game. You just beat them. You're going on the road. Noon games on the road, really weird for NBA players. Sounds like an excuse, but it's also true. And then they know they have Wemby at home the next night. They play pretty well in the first half. They play lousy in the second half. They're also got to a point where they're playing Joe Ingles serious minutes. So when you look at that game, is there justification for being upset about that? Or is that just going to happen? Because, I mean, also, I think Jaden had Conley was out. Jaden got in foul trouble. You just had it. I felt like that was a game. If you're going to get mad at anything, it would be that they just don't necessarily have as much depth as they used to have.
Yeah, look, like I don't want to be the one that's been like, it doesn't matter, because then like why are we watching these games? Right. But in the larger context of things, teams lose games. Like, that's Houston's lost 3 in a row right now. They lost to Sacramento on Sunday night. OKC got blown out at home by Charlotte. Like, in an 82 game season, it's just going to happen. And the problem that the Wolves have is that, and I think we talked about this last week, Jim, but like they are Rudy Gobert personified in terms of largely really successful, win a lot of games. In the aggregate, they are going to be a really good team with great numbers and a good record, but their mistakes are ugly. And when they are not playing to their best, it's usually because they don't bring the requisite energy. They don't have that kind of defensive tenacity, and they're not making the hustle plays that we saw against San Antonio, that we've seen a lot lately. And so it looks uninspiring. I am concerned about their depth. I do want to see them add another piece, whether it is Shannon or Dillingham figuring things out and becoming that piece, or they going outside the organization and doing it. I think they need more bodies. I do. I worry sometimes about turnovers, about decision-making, about really good defenses getting in and forcing them to be isolation heavy and them struggling through that. Those are flaws or faults that this team deals with. I worry about the Naz Reid, Julius Randle defensive minutes when Rudy Gobert is on the bench. Like, those are real things to be concerned about. And so I think that we need to acknowledge that those things are there and that this team has faults that need to be addressed in one way, shape, or form. But, the Cleveland one is a good example of, there are days that you just do not have it, like in this season. And since Thanksgiving, which is now a month and a half ago, they have the best record in the league. They have beaten really good teams, including San Antonio twice, Boston, Oklahoma City. Like, they've had really good victories in those games. And they are now, I think they're 4th in the West right now, but like they're
game and a half out of second seed.
Yeah, they're right there. So if you're a fan, have high expectations, like have standards that you want this team to meet. But you're going to absolutely lose your mind if you obsess over every single game in a way that, makes it seem like it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Like, it's just, like, that's just not going to be the healthy way to process game to game an entire season. And so they're in great shape right now. They look really good. They look connected and locked in a way that they didn't earlier in the season. They will lose ugly games going forward some. They may go in a stretch where they lose 4 out of 5 or something like that. But I think what they've established now this late into the season is that they are a talented team. When they are playing their best, they can beat anyone. And they need to be reckoned with in this conference. And so that's a fun position to be in, and it should make for a great second half of the season.
I want to thank everybody who listens. Let's get to our Twitter question from sglambchops.com.
Yeah, and let's promo code JONK20 at sglambchops.com to get 20% off anything you get there. And so this one comes from Wolves Show Yo. What would you be willing to give up to get a point guard if you think the Wolves even need one, such as Kobe White-Ja, Trey Jones? Would you be willing to give up Dillingham, Conley? And so we talked a little bit earlier about, maybe point guard isn't the my feeling of their biggest need, but let's just extrapolate it out to either what are you willing to give up in any deal? And I am to the point right now, Jim, where it's like, man, trade Dante DiVincenzo at your own risk.
Yeah, I know.
Because he is playing so dang well. Even on nights where he's not shooting, he brings the hustle, the grit, the tenacity that you need to go get wins in this, in this league. And he is a bargain at like $12 million. And so I just would be really reluctant unless you're adding a piece that you just think is, can't miss stuff. I would hold on to him. What other pieces they have? I mean, you do look at Rob Dillingham. Like I do think, like, similar to Luca Garza, they have to ask that question. Are we going to give Rob Dillingham at any point in the next year or so the run that he needs to really, like, make a decision on can he play in this league or not? And right now it does not look like he's going to get that opportunity here. And so it might be better to look at other options for him before the entire league knows that he's on the outs here, and you lose any kind of value in trying to move him. So I think, like, you have to look at that. I would be a little bit hesitant about Shannon because I still think that he can be a really good player, and he's 25 years old, and if he's healthy, I think that he gives you something, but he's another young player that would be enticing for another team to take a flyer on. So I would include him. Mike Conley is a tough one because of everything that he's meant to this organization. I think it would be a difficult look to send him to, say, Sacramento for Keon Ellis, and have him waylaid out there as his career winds down. Now, this is a business. You have to make tough decisions sometimes. But again, that would be one where I would only move him if you are getting to a piece that you really think is coming in that's going to play a significant role in your rotation. And again, I would be very reluctant to do it anyway, just because of what he's meant and what he's done and that. So, like, it's a long answer to say the Wolves don't have a lot of clear-cut, easy solutions to go get guys. Like, do you want to move Naz Reid? I don't want to move Naz Reid. Nope. Do you want to move Julius Randle? I don't want to move Julius Randle. And so I think that there will be deals to be made, but it's going to be challenging to make them, just given the way that their asset kind of chest is stocked and the players that will be available out there. So I would just say, like, yes, I think that they are trying to look at deals, and I would even say that I think there's a good chance that they do make a trade before February. It's just not, I would be very surprised if it's of the really big variety. I like the Twitter question mentioned Trey Jones. That's a really interesting guy for me. Would Chicago part with him? I'm not sure. But somebody like that, a bench guy who could come in and play some for you for a relatively small price, that's what feels like we're headed toward here.
Yeah. Good question. Good answer. Thanks, John. We do appreciate it. John, stay on the line here. We're using new technology. We need to stay with us until we upload the show. Just thanks as always to everyone who listens, everyone who supports this this channel and this show financially. Our sponsors keep us alive. We really appreciate everything they do for us, and they also happen to be tend to be great people too. So it's really fun to work with them. So thank you to everyone, including John. Thanks to our producer, Alex Haugen, for getting us through another show, and we'll talk to you next week.